Hey, how's it going? This particular video is about the Martin family and the FBI and how they're still trying to bring this case together to try to charge George for something. I mean, they're really not happy about this thing. And I wanted to talk about it because that there's nothing they can do at this point, and I wanted to show that.
Far from over. Zimmerman, as you know, was acquitted on second-degree murder and manslaughter charges in the death of Trayvon Martin, but the Miami Herald reports Martin's parents met this week with Justice Department prosecutors and FBI agents about the possibility of a criminal civil rights case against Zimmerman. The Justice Department has said in the past that it would look into whether Zimmerman violated any federal hate crimes laws when he shot the unarmed teenager. But if a jury agreed that Zimmerman killed Martin in self-defense, how would the feds be able to somehow prove otherwise?
Well, they certainly won't be able to. And they've had over a year and a half to try to find anything, and they haven't found it. Not only that, but the information that we have from the FBI is that they were unable to find anything, and that he's actually a pretty good guy when it comes to race.
Joining me now live from San Francisco is veteran prosecutor Paul Henderson. Paul, thanks for being with us. Is it unusual for federal investigators to consider pursuing charges against someone who's already been acquitted by a jury of his peers?
Well, it always depends on the facts and circumstances surrounding each case. In this case, there are some unique.
So, he asked the question, a basic question. Is it unusual? Is this an unusual thing to have the federal government come in after he's already been acquitted by the state? And, in some cases we know it's happened, like in the O.J. case, because O.J. murdered people and got off because his jury was racist. And we all know that. I mean, the entire country knows that. But in this case, we have, 5 white women and 1 Latin woman, and they came to the conclusion based on the law, not based on racism.
Issues that have come up because the hate crime allegations and the hate crime charges might be limited by the ruling in a state court, which has already affirmed a self-defense. Because what the feds will have to do is really focus on how they can prove intent. But there are a couple of ways that they can do that separate from the ruling. So if, for instance, there is a civil case and more evidence comes out or different testimony comes out that helps affirm those charges.
So he's basically telling us that all the evidence that we've seen in this case, there is nothing in there that's going to support any charges against George from the FBI.
Then there are more and more possibilities. I got to say, one of the things that I'm encouraged by is how closely the Martin family is participating in this process, even after they've had the verdict.
So let me get this straight. You're impressed by the Martin family because they got what they wanted. They said, all we want is an arrest. That's all they wanted. They got the arrest. Then once they got that, they said, all we want is a trial. Just a trial. We want him to go before the jury. Well, they got that. Now, they wanted a conviction. Well, we're sorry. The jury said no. No conviction. That's the way it is. That's the way our system works. Now back off.
The fact that the feds are bringing them in, they're sitting down with them, that have started an investigation, which is what they've asked for, and keeping them updated, I think is encouraging, not just for them, but for a lot of communities that want to know what's the next step? Where do we go from here? A lot of people feel frustrated, or a lot of people feel now informed about the process associated with the state court ruling. And so the fact that there are ongoing conversations and ongoing options, I think is better because people feel empowered by having this information.
So how can they be frustrated and informed? If you're informed of the case and you know the facts of the case, you're not frustrated because you understand that George was doing what was legal and proper, morally correct, by saving his life from the attack of somebody who had no reason to be attacking him.
Paul, how much longer do you think we can expect this investigation to last? Is this going to go on for months and months, or do you think this will be relatively quick?
Well, I could guess that it's going to go on for months and months, maybe even years and years. Maybe it would never end. Why? Because it's a fear factor. They know they have nothing. They knew they had nothing. The only reason they did this was a political ploy. Obama wants to keep this case alive, and they will because they invested so much in this, and they've got so many ignorant people that are vested deeply in this. Ignorant people that have not followed the case, ignorant people that really don't know what's going on in the case. And you can tell who they are. Usually they'll say something like, uh, George chased this guy down and shot him in cold blood, just because they don't know the case. They don't know anything about it. And if they do, it's like, once they finally come to the conclusion that they're wrong, they say, well, still, Trayvon had a right to defend himself, even though George didn't touch him. It's the most ridiculous thing.
Well, the investigation now, I'm presuming the update that they gave them is where they are now. Here's where we are, and here's what we have to work with. It's hard to answer that question because we don't know what the likelihood is of a civil case that comes forward that may give them more information and more evidence. But, we don't know if that's going to happen at any time in the near future. I'm sure they know already what information they have. We've been provided.
Yes, they do know what information they have already. We've all had it for a long time, but we're gonna drag this thing out because this is the way they do it. This is part of the race war. They want to divide the races. So you people that call me a racist, it's because you believe it, because you're being drawn into this race war by these people that need you to fall for it. So if you fall for it, then yes, you are you are the weak-minded, because it takes the weak mind. That's what they want. They can only create this kind of havoc with weak minds. So if you're listening to my voice right now and you're one of those people that are upset with this verdict and you want to do something about it, you're one of the weak minds that are being abused by the powers that be.
With a lot of the testimony and a lot of the evidence that we all saw in the state courtroom, and I presume that's the information that's being provided with the parents about where they are now and what they may need in order to move forward.
Well, I can tell you what they're going to need. A smoking gun won't do it. So let's say the FBI came out and they said, "Look, we got a video that we didn't have before. We didn't know about this video, but now we got it." The video shows George ran down there, grabbed Trayvon, dragged him back, was dragging him against his will. Trayvon's begging, "Please let me go," and he couldn't get away. And then finally, he got the better of George a little bit, and George shot him. So we got this video now. Remember, this is just to say it's not for real. So this new video, the FBI brings it out and says, "Okay, let's try him now." No, 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 no. He's already been completely cleared of the death of Trayvon. Right? So everybody knows that, right? Y'all understand. Nothing. There is no evidence. There's only one thing that they could find that would possibly create an issue for George. And that is racism in a way that caused him to want to kill Trayvon because of his skin color. So you couldn't say, "Yeah, well, he said that word," or "he said that word," or and we got evidence, or we have evidence that he doesn't like black people. Look at we found all this new evidence. He hates black people. He's threatened. We've got video recordings of him saying what he's going to do to these black people. Even if they had all that, even if that was that was in evidence, that's not what they need. They need to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that George shot Trayvon while he was on his back getting his head banged, through his shirt, through 4 inches of air, through Trayvon's chest and into his heart. All because he hates the color that Trayvon is. He hates black people. That's why he killed him, not because he was getting his head crushed. And the fact that the president would approve of even holding such a case up is the most ridiculous thing, and it makes him look so stupid. And all the talking heads on on TV right now. Ridiculous, out of control people. Anyway, I just wanted to show this. Good talking to you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.